Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, football, college football, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, and your favorite casino and card games are available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use your promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. And joining us on the Carne Asada is one of the Dodgers broadcasters, one of the voices now of the Dodgers of Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, the man the pride of La Playa of Huntington.
Yeah.
Steven Nelson. Steven, ¿cómo estás, amigo?
Bien. ¿Y tú?
Muy bien, muchas gracias. I live out in Orange County. I was raised in Orange County. So seeing that one of the Orange County people made it is very encouraging.
Wait, whereabouts one?
In the land of gracious living known as Yorba Linda.
Hey,
which is
that's where my sister lives, and my brother-in-law and my nephews. Yeah, man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We're
Yeah,
up in Yorba quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, back when I was a kid, there it was just the only Mexicans there were my cousins and I. But now it's changed. It's changed a little bit.
The demographics have evolved, right?
Yeah, exactly. The demographics. But no, it was nice to see that an OC kid has made it. So
let's
congratulate. And not all of us can be magna cum laude. All right, Steven. That's all I'm saying.
I wish I could shake. If there was like one thing I could scrub from my bio, it'd be that. Because like I don't know how that always ends up on like, a press release about a show at MLB Network or doing broadcast for the Dodgers or doing an event here. They always seem to like force that in. And I'm like, it doesn't, nobody knows what that means. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I wish I could scrub that.
I will tell our viewers, I will tell our listeners what that means is Steven is very smart. He's very intelligent. And you should never apologize. You should never apologize for that.
Thanks, Juan. Thank you, Juan. Well, the old saying, kids, is fake it until you make it. And so, it's just, or know what you're good at and go that route.
Absolutely. Well, Steven, I want, before we get into it, I do want to just see if you are aware of this. There is this on social media. I think it's our friend Eric Steven does this. Keeps tracks of the records of the broadcasters.
Yeah.
So you are aware of this, right? So
I am aware.
You're kicking everybody's ass.
So I joke with Eric about this down in the dugout all the time. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you're doing this to all of them? It's great broadcasting games for a really good baseball team. I can't put it any simpler than that. I have zero to do with it, though. People seem to think that I have everything to do with ruining perfect games or jinxing special things on broadcasting. So both are true. I have nothing to do with perfect games, and I have nothing to do with the success of the team. But I am having a blast with all of my outstanding colleagues here at Sportsnet, and we're having a blast watching this 2023 Dodger baseball team. But I can't. Zero credit to me.
But I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, you make it look seamless. I mean, I have to remind everyone that this is your first year. And with the Dodgers, they do something a little different. It's not like you are just working with one person. Like you're working with multiple people. How did you have an opportunity to build any of that chemistry, or does that go as the season progresses?
It's been on the fly. Like, so Jess Mendoza and I met for the first time in Seattle. Like clinch weekend, never met before, let alone worked together. So it was, I don't think it's a scenario that either of us would have hand selected, like working a potential clinch with somebody you don't know at all. But everybody has made it so easy for me to kind of double dutch into things this year and just be a part of the team. And really, that was my whole focus coming in. Like, a lot of folks, they ask about the dynamic of, being a backup or the quote unquote number two and aspirations. And I'm like, honestly, like, I stop everybody right there. Like, I don't care about any of that. Like, for me, this is a chance to be a part of the greatest organization in baseball and work with a lot of really talented and fun people. I get to learn from Joe. So I'm in full happy to be here mode. So the fact that Oral and D-Train and EK and Jess, I haven't had a chance to do games with Nomar, but I've obviously done pre and post with him. Like they've all like opened their arms and brought me in has meant a lot to me and my family. So yeah, but from a broadcasting standpoint, it's not the perfect world to be meeting somebody on the air live while you're trying to make a good first impression your first year with the new team.
Exactly, because I get, let's show everybody, let's pull back the curtain, or let everybody see how the sausage is made. But
Yeah.
like I said, and I don't mean to like wash your balls here, but it's like it's really hard. I'm sorry for being grotesque there, but it's really hard to not like step on the other person, like know when to set the other person up, when to pull back, like that kind of stuff. And for you to just meet your partner, and now you're going to call not only a game, but a weekend where they could clinch. And those were like playoff games that you were
They really were.
that weekend.
Oh, you weren't kidding, man. And like the clinch night, like if you ask our producer, Michael Levy, that was one of the more chaotic, hectic nights you could possibly imagine. You couldn't predict a night like that where it's like, okay, the Giants lost both times, so now it's a win or a D-backs loss. And they were watching the D-backs game, and neither the Cubs nor Arizona wanted to win that. And it was like, all right, this one, it's going to be over one way or another. And it kept going, and it was just like, and then the Dodgers have a chance to win it in the 10th, and Mike Ford, respectfully, of all people, like, all right, pushes it to the 11th, and it was just like, just an utter shit show, for lack of a better word. I'll match your wash the balls segment. but
it's a competition of crudeness, Steven. Let's go. Let's do it.
Roger, you better bring it. You better bring it when you're up, man. No, so it was again not the smoothest script, whoever wrote it, but it definitely made for a more memorable weekend. I will say that.
You mentioned it earlier about how, fans listening to you, watching you, they blame you. Oh, we lost a no-hitter because he mentioned it and all that stuff. But you came from, you were doing Friday Night Baseball with Apple. And I really thought that you guys got a really bad rap on that. Like, it's one of the things that I think is the problem with baseball now is that baseball's no longer national, it's regionalized.
Right.
So it's like, if you hear people calling a game, the same thing happens with the ESPN guys or the Fox guys. Whenever they're doing a national game, oh, these guys hate us. They're always talking crap on us, or they like the other people. And poor Katie Nolan. I thought Katie Nolan got beat up for no reason. Like, what was that experience like for you? Like, in order to improve as a broadcaster, you kind of do have to listen a little bit, right?
All right. So in the spirit of what you mentioned earlier, kind of drawing the curtain back and letting people in, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I won't give you like a boilerplate answer here. Last year was really difficult. It was difficult on all of us because, what folks don't know, or probably don't care to know, is that we were asked to provide a different broadcasting experience. I think, Apple wanted more of a podcast feel instead of a traditional baseball broadcast, but nobody knew that. No fans were aware. And so for fans who were tuning in expecting, a typical national broadcast, let alone, a broadcast featuring, their favorite play-by-play broadcasters, their favorite color commentators, their favorite field reporters, they're being treated to something. They're like, what? Why is there so much talking? Why is it so different? Yada yada. There were a lot of unanswered questions for fans. So on one hand, it was frustrating to go through that, but on the other, we sort of understood. Like, look, I think it's human nature to resist change. Like, people like what they like and they dislike what they dislike. And if they find something that they do like, they don't want to stray from that. And I think that's especially true when it comes to baseball, right? Like, you could have the smallest rule change and people will blow it up into something, crazy. It's like, what, they're making the bases how much bigger? Like, like the pitch, like, you know what I mean? So I think any sort of change is tough to digest. And so as a fellow human and a fellow fan and a content consumer, I empathize with that. But there were definitely a lot of stones thrown our way, especially at Katie. And, there are some deeper rooted issues there, I think, when it comes to sports fandom, and they see a woman in a broadcast booth and they feel some type of way. But the way that that kind of came to life was not cool. And I will defend Katie to the end of time. She was one of my favorite people. We met the date, again, she was hired like 2 days before our first game. So we met in the booth in Anaheim. So, but we became fast friends, and we still talk to this day. And she busted her ass, man. She really worked hard. It was just, I think for all of us, it was a big learning experience. And for me, like, it definitely impacted my confidence, man. Like, when you see all the criticism, you're like, oh shit, like, I really can't suck tonight. And this is one of those jobs where the harder you try to not make mistakes, like for me, the more mistakes I ended up making. And I got to the point where I was like, maybe I'm just a studio host. Like, maybe I'm not meant to call play-by-play. Like, I genuinely believe that. And then out of nowhere, the Dodgers called, and it took me a while for me to kind of understand, like, hey, they're calling for a reason. Maybe you don't suck as much as you think you do. And so this all that to say that this year being with the Dodgers has really been a blessing, and has given me a huge boost, not just in my career, but I think in life, being back home. So very grateful for the opportunity here.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Kudos to you, man, to go through what you went through and then get to put in this situation. I don't want to say you paid your dues, but maybe it was owed to you karma-wise that you fall into this Dodgers situation. I mean, the other thing, and I think you handled this beautifully earlier in the year, you had mentioned about the stuff that Katie was dealing with, and let's just go out there and say what it is, the misogyny that Katie had to face. Now, here, I love, you can't come to Los Angeles and ignore the diversity. As much as people want to sit there and say, it's just about baseball, it's about winning or losing, I don't care. It's like, look, if you can be blind to that and not see these things, good for you. You have a superpower that I don't have. But
100%.
I can't ignore the fact that we have a broadcast team that is diverse. We have Dontrell on here when Major League Baseball, there's a lot. I mean, Mookie the year before was begging them, we need more African Americans in Major League Baseball. We have Dontrell on here. We have Jessica Mendoza. And not only Jessica Mendoza, she's also a Latina.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love when you go out there and you have to represent the whole Asian American community, because you,
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, Steven, are the only Asian American doing play-by-play in Major League Baseball, right?
Yeah, I mean, Adam Amin does national games for Fox, but in terms of working for a team, I mean, just broadcasters of color in general, you have Dave Sims in Seattle does TV and radio. Robert Ford does radio for the Houston Astros. And then after that, it's crickets, right? I mean, Jenny Cavnar does some work for the Colorado Rockies. Jenny's awesome. But you're really kind of having to think about it. And you really can't find much after that, which is a shame. And so I'm talk about pride in your work, like to having done games where it was me next to D-Train and Kirsten Watson down on the field. That's, or me, Jess, and Kirsten, right? Like that. I think that says a lot about this organization, which has stood for that representation and diversity for generations now, right? Going way back, this is Jackie's franchise, right? This is Fernando's franchise, Jaime Jarin's franchise. This is, Billie Jean King. The list goes on of examples of this Dodgers organization kind of stepping up and trying to be reflective of the community that it's in, and it means so much to. And so that is a part. I know people want to simplify it into stick to sports and just call the baseball game. We don't care about anything else. That's a certain type of person who has the luxury, the privilege of saying that. And so for us, we're going to kind of bang the drum for our respective communities and the Dodger community as a whole. So that means a hell of a lot to me. It means everything to me because it's just about it's just about the people behind you. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be able to do this forever. And so if I can push the door open a little bit further for other Asian American kids, other broadcasters of color, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
And I appreciate you saying that because let me tell you, I was there the other night, Guatemalan Heritage Night, and I'm out in the center field plaza. And when they sang the Guatemalan national anthem, I saw a bunch of fans getting emotional because they were hearing it. And for me, what that is I know some people aren't fans of these heritage nights, you know, to each his own or whatever. But when you see someone and you see how emotional they get, it's because they're being recognized. Here is an organization, a baseball team that who knows how long they've been fans of. And for the first time, they feel they're being seen. So I applaud the Dodgers for doing something like that.
100%, man. Again, like if you don't like the Heritage Night, this is, and I don't speak for the organization. This is just for me.
Yeah.
That is fine. That is totally your right as an individual. The night isn't for you. Like I think it's important for people to live beyond their own experiences. I'm not saying don't come. I would encourage you to come because you might learn something about another community that you didn't know. And so like maybe it's too idealistic for us to say, like, shouldn't we as humans like want to become more empathetic and more understanding? I think so. Not everybody believes that way. Not everybody agrees with us. But again, those nights are really cool because it is, like you said, it's just making sure that people feel seen and welcome. And it is really cool to look out in the stands and see people's reaction to, you know, the different anthems or the trivia board on the video board here, and or the musical acts that come and supplement the evenings. Like it's just it's a really a lot goes into them, and I applaud this team for pouring as much time and energy as they do into them and being so inclusive.
Absolutely. Roger, let's change gears and talk about this Dodgers team. You want to have Steven convince you that everything's going to be okay when it comes to the playoffs?
Oh, wait, Roger, are you skies falling?
No, I'm not skies falling. I mean,
okay.
I mean, I'm convinced this team is in for a deep run. I mean, but we're concerned. Our biggest concern this whole season has been the pitching staff, right? Like I think that's the major concern. Like they've kind of just, you know, put this pitching staff together. Like, how is that going to work in the postseason? Are they going to be able to sustain that? Like, how are they going to, without having, you know, their, you know, because every team's going to throw, you know, their best number one, their number two, number three. How are the Dodgers going to do that?
I mean, this is going to be. Honestly, I don't think anybody who pretends to have the answer to that question is full of it, to be honest, because it's something we haven't seen. Because typically, the teams that are going deep in the postseason, they're riding a trio of horses, right? You think about the Nationals in 2019; it was Strasburg and Scherzer and Patrick Corbin, and then a good back end of the bullpen. Or you think about the most likely opponent, it seems, for the Dodgers in the DS, the Milwaukee Brewers. They will have Corbin Burns. They will have Brandon Woodruff. They will have Freddie Peralta. And then they will have Devin Williams waiting at the back end of the bullpen and some other pieces who have emerged as a year ago along. For this Dodger team, it ain't going to be that, right? This is not going to be conventional, but that doesn't mean that it can't or won't work. It just remains to be seen. And I think it'd be one thing for fans or for anybody, forget fans. I'm not trying to make this a fan versus media or fan versus broadcaster thing. I think one thing that kind of adds to that anxiety for people when thinking about the Dodgers postseason chances is that the bulk of these guys are inexperienced. It'd be one thing if it was a bunch of Ryan Yarboroughs, right, who are veterans who have done different roles before, or have opened a bunch of games or been the bulk guy for a bunch of games, and they know how to handle it under the brightest lights. Fact is, we just don't know about these Dodger rookies yet. Now, they have answered seemingly every regular season question you could throw at them, but they'd be the first to tell you, and Doc Roberts has talked about this ad nauseum, the post is different. The post is different. Talent it's not a question of talent with those guys. It's a question of, can you handle your emotions, not just lows, but highs, knowing that one inning may be great and the next inning may bring some challenges, and can you ride those waves? And we don't know until we know. And so I think that's why there's so much angst to get there. Like, you just want to hit the sim button on these last 2 weeks of the regular season. Let's just get to October healthy, and let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with so we know. But we don't. And so that's it's the beauty of it, and it's the darndest thing at the same time.
Stephen, is it fair? Because for most people, they will say the Dodgers have overachieved this year. Everyone thought the show pods were going to win this division, and now the Dodgers might have a chance of winning 100 games. Stephen, so how do we... The Dodgers have overachieved at this point, because at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of people that thought the show pods were going to run away with this division, right?
Yeah.
Nobody thought the Dodgers would have a chance at winning 100 games. They even have a chance to get the number 1 seed if things go their way.
Right.
Now, if things go wrong for them in the playoffs, everyone's going to say, "Oh, they suck. They lost again." I mean, is it that easy to just dismiss the season when you have historical things being accomplished with, like, the stuff that Freddie Freeman's done?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Juan, because the goalposts have indeed moved for the Dodgers as this season has gone on, right? You mentioned last offseason, everybody expected a changing of the guard in the National League West, and the Dodgers to get to the postseason, it was definitely going to be as one of those last 2 wild card teams. And for the first couple months of this year, those takes seemed to be validated, right? Like, they were kind of uneven out of the gates, and they were sitting at 3rd in the division. And you're looking at all the rookies and the inexperience, whether it's Vargas or Outman, and especially after James's hot month. And then you see an entire pitching staff, forget the rotation, pitching staff too, because they had some bullpen weapons all on the injured list. And all the rookies, it was like, see, like, this is not going to happen for this team. And they've had reclamation projects before, but that the magic dust has run out. Like, it's not going to be Jason Hayward or Miguel Rojas or David Peralta. No way. And then they turned it on. And now, as they've run away with the West again, people have been talking about it like, "Oh, see, the Dodgers are still the Dodgers." It's like, no, yeah, you didn't think that. You weren't talking about that. That's just how good this team has been. And they've had to do it in such a unique way. And they've done it so differently from the other teams that this last decade plus of dominance that the Dodgers have enjoyed. So to that end, you cannot whatever happens in the post, you cannot dismiss 2023, because at the end of the day, I feel, regardless what happens, this is going to be looked at as a foundational year for this organization moving forward. Okay. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen with the veterans and Jason Hayward and David Peralta and JD Martinez, Clayton Kershaw, of course. Who knows what's going to happen with them? But for the young guys, the fire that they were thrown into and grew through, the James Outmans, the Bobby Millers, the Emmett Sheehan's, the Ryan Pepios, the list goes on. The things that they learned this year will be so invaluable to them moving forward. And that's why I really feel, because all those guys seem to be pillars to me. Those don't seem like flashes in the pan. Right. So that's why I think it's going to be foundational for them to being part of the next great Dodger core. So I don't think you can dismiss this year. That's on one hand. You do have to acknowledge, though, the taking advantage of opportunities for greatness, because people will say, like they did for Atlanta in 2018 when the Dodgers saw them in the DS, Atlanta's ahead of schedule. Sure, that may be true, and Atlanta has proved to be perennial contenders since then, but you don't know that at the time. And you want to assume that the Dodgers will be perennial contenders because that's what they have been for forever at this point. but you don't know that they're going to get to this point again next year. So you want to maximize that opportunity, because who knows what's going to happen with Clayton Kershaw and JD Martinez and Jason Hayward, and David Peralta, and on you go. So I think both can be true at the same time. It does not have to be one or the other.
Absolutely. Look, I want to be respectful for your time because I know you got to call a game. Babyface, do you want to give him your MVP vote and see if he agrees?
Ooh.
I mean, that is so tough because it keeps changing. Like obviously in August, right? It was like, oh, Mookie's running away with this thing, right? Then he's cooled off. Acuna's been like consistent like the entire season, but now you got Freddie Freeman, right? The first baseman to be 200. Like, how do you ignore something like that, right? Like, I mean, who's gonna win that race? And then you got Matt Olson too, like of course in Atlanta as well. It's like, who's gonna win that race?
Man, it is a wild year, because the guys who are going to finish like a comfortable third and fourth in most years would win, whether it's Freddie or Olsen in Atlanta. At this juncture, what are we on the 23rd? What are we on the 23rd of September?
Yes, sir.
My assumption is that Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to win the National League MVP. I just think, look, Mookie, it's undeniable that Mookie has cooled off at the plate this month. His slug is way, way down, and not even compared to just the historic August that he had. It's just down, period. And whether we want to like it, whether we like it or not, or want to acknowledge it or not, the MVP skews offensive. And for as much as we can, slam on the horn for Mookie's defense and his versatility and the value that has brought to this team this year, I don't think that the voting body is going to overlook Ronald Acuna Jr.'s historic accomplishments. I mean, if he goes 40-70, like, I mean, it's just bonkers. And it's, look, one thing if he was 40-70 and he was hitting 280 and striking out, 25% of the time, or, but he's cut his strikeout rate 10%. He's a complete hitter. I on an Atlanta radio station before the final series against the Braves here, I was asked the same question. And at the time I was like, I think it's Mookie's. And my rationale was, look, the Braves had 8 All-Stars. They had 6 position player All-Stars. That doesn't even include Michael Harris II, who began playing like an All-Star since June, and Marcell Ozuna, who's approaching 40 home runs. So, all I've been hearing all year is this historically good Braves offense. Well, I'm not saying that the Dodgers offense is terrible. It's not, right? It's a machine, especially with 2 outs. People in the weeds know how good the Dodgers offense is, but it doesn't have 6 position player all-stars. It had 4, and JD Martinez has played how many games in the second half, right? Like, he has not, Mookie and Freddie have not had the same level of protection behind them the way that Acuna Jr. and Olsen have had. Now, while that may be true, that doesn't, I don't say that to disparage Ronald Acuna Jr. Again, I think he's ultimately going to win the award, but I just think that the context that we can see objectively as Dodger fans, like looking at it for Mookie's case, I just don't think that that's going to be enough for the voting body. And now if Mookie goes off here the last week and a half, and he gets his 40th home run and he sets the leadoff records, and he kind of finishes on a high note, then maybe that will change folks' minds. But I just think it's been it seems like Acuna Jr.'s year. It just seems that way.
Before we let you go, Steven, just to settle an argument between Babyface and I, is Freddie Freeman in the same category as Ozzie Albies or vice versa?
Wait, what?
Thank you. All right, I'm the winner of that argument.
He didn't set it up. He was trying to tell me that Ozzie Albies is not like a threat. Like he's not
No,
an
no, no, no. I
offensive
wasn't
threat.
telling you he's not a threat. What I was telling you is that Freddie Freeman is in a different level than Ozzy Albies.
Yeah, he's in a
I'm
different
not
level.
saying
But
Ozzy
I was
Albies
trying to
is
say
bad,
Ozzy
but you
Albies
can't put Ozzy
is.
Albies on the same level as Freddie Freeman. Am
I'm
I?
just still
Guys,
saying that
guys, this
he's a
is like
threat.
watching mom. This is like watching mom and dad fight. I don't like it. I don't like being caught in the middle. I look. I love Ozzy. I love talking to Ozzy Albies, and he's a really good baseball player. But he has not had the same level of excellence or consistency that Freddie Freeman has had. So if you're talking about in a vacuum, 2023, even I don't put Ozzy Albies in the same class. Now, in terms of this, like what they mean to their respective teams, I could buy that argument. I could hear it. But I just think Freddie's a different caliber.
Look, Steven is a truth.
Freddie's got, like he's on the Cooperstown Highway. Like Ozzy Albies is like Hall of Very Good. Like he was a really solid baseball player. That museum, like that's where he's going.
You cannot argue with the man. He's a truth teller. He's not a homer. He's not a homer. He will sit here and tell us, hey, Acuna Jr. is the MVP. But anyway, Steven, I know we've taken too much of your time already. We want to thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on this year. I mean, like I said, it really has been seamless. I know we're spoiled here in Los Angeles with our broadcasters. We went from Vin to Joe Davis, and now if Joe Davis isn't calling the game, we have you, so we don't have to worry about our ears bleeding.
Well, okay. Well, Juan and Roger, first and foremost, thank you for your time. You guys have been incredibly patient with me today and really all year. This is so overdue. So I'm really glad that we finally got to do it. Again, I apologize for kind of just being this difficult.
You had a kid. You had a kid, Steven. You have an excuse.
He has two, like what, 2 under 2 or something like that, right?
Yeah, two under 2. And so we're trying to figure it out, and we are losing currently. Hopefully we can overcome this early series deficit. But yeah, again, I really just am grateful for your time and the welcome. But to be clear, the drop off from those first two names you mentioned, and Mr. Scully and Joe Davis, to me is considerable. So I'm just glad that I haven't ruined it for you guys. And this is such a great opportunity. And my only focus is to just like earn it every single game. And, that's not going to change, as the years go on. So I don't take this for granted at all.
And where can our viewers, our listeners, can they follow you on the social media, Steven?
So don't waste your time like that, one. But it's just my name. It's just Steven with a PH. I will have admittedly like dropped off the face of the Twitterverse earth. For my own health and happiness. But I'll pop on and check some DMs, and I don't look at my notifications. DMs and pop on Instagram for some puppies and baby content to fill the happy tank some more. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
There you have it.
You won't find me, on TikTok. Yeah, no, you won't find me doing that on the TikTok.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Steven Nelson has confirmed social media is not real. But anyways, thank you so much for joining us on the show, Steven. Good luck on the call tonight.
Hey, God bless you and your families, fellas. We'll do it again soon.
And a big thank you once again to SportsNetLA Dodgers broadcaster Steven Nelson for joining us on the show. As Steven mentioned, we had been trying to get him on the show the whole season, so we're glad that he was finally able to join us. Babyface, one of the things that surprised me, and I don't know if had you heard, I don't think I had ever heard him or anybody that was involved with the Apple Friday night broadcasts from last year talk about it. And to hear him say that he met Katie Nolan like minutes before they broadcast their first game, and the fact that I knew they wanted them to do something different. And I didn't think they were bad. I really didn't think they were bad. The fact that it was something different, I get it. I think there is a little truth to what Steven had said, whether it's intentional or not. But when you make comments like, well, they got that woman on there talking, it's the definition of misogyny right there, So I found it. Have you ever heard him or anybody else talk about that experience?
I had not heard it. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about that whole Apple thing too. Like, I mean, because it was like really weird. Like all of a sudden, like Apple TV is like they're showing baseball games, right? And then when you tuned in, like, I mean, I guess it did work, right? They wanted something different because it did feel different, like and maybe that was the turnoff because it just felt really kind of different, like the broadcast this year. I think to me it kind of feels like a little bit more normal when I've heard an Apple TV game this season. So, but yeah, I mean, just
I mean, the Dodgers and the Giants just played on Friday, and
yeah.
I feel like, do you think they heard the criticism from last year and just told these guys, go back to just being a traditional baseball
I
broadcast?
mean, that's the thing, though, too. Like it was a brand new thing, right? Like, and when you start something brand new, right, you're just gonna okay, let's go out there and see what we can do, and then as you progress, right, you're gonna change things. This is working, this isn't working, and I think probably that's kind of where they felt like there was things they wanted to try, and maybe that didn't work, and like they're gonna look, we'll keep what's working, we'll keep what's not working, and progress. I mean, look, but go. I challenge our listeners, go listen to episode 1 of the Bleed Lows podcast and tell us if things have changed from here and we're on the cusp of 200 episodes. So
Yeah, look, I'm happy for the guy because I don't think he could have landed in a better spot, because he and I mean, Katie Nolan probably took most of the shit, right? But for him to leave that situation in Apple and land here with the Dodgers, and you and I, we had this conversation back when Joe Davis was on the show. How much longer is Joe Davis going to do this, right? He's the voice of baseball for Fox. He does football. He's got young kids. How much longer does he want to be away from those kids, right? If he does the game of the week once a week, he's doing football once a week, that allows him a lot more time to stay home. Plus, Joe Davis is making a pretty penny, right? So if all of a sudden Joe Davis decides, you know what, I don't know if I want to do the everyday play by play, Steven Nelson, I think might be a very good candidate. I don't have a problem, with that. I mean, Steven Nelson is a very accomplished. I think he's very polished. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Steven Nelson. And again, that's how lucky we are here with the Dodgers that we've had broadcasters that even the guys on the radio side, I think they're all great. The Dodgers have really good broadcasters.
yeah, I mean, I think just what the problem is always going to be like with the Dodgers is like, especially like if you've followed this team for a long time, everybody's always going to be in the shadow of Vin,
Yeah.
and we've spoken to them. They're not trying to be Vin, right? They're not trying to replace Vin. They're their own person, but they're always going to be like, I listen to Vin Scully. This is how I grew up, and this is how I feel. And Joe Davis, though, I mean, to be fair, Joe Davis is, I think he's really good. Like, he incorporates a lot of the stuff that Vin did, like the stories, right? A lot of storytelling, but he's completely different, right? And then Steven Nelson's his own person too, right? So he does his own thing, right? And they're all going to be different, and they're all going to be good in their own special way. But like you said, I mean, we cannot compare them to Vin Scully because Vin Scully obviously is the greatest of all time, and it's not fair to these other guys or anybody in that booth to compare them to, the great Vin.
You're absolutely right, and you bring up a very good point. While I don't think these guys are trying to be Vin Scully, I don't think you can deny the influence of Vin Scully. I think that stuff is just it just comes it just you may not know it. If you're influenced by someone, I think it's very easy for you to mimic their delivery, to mimic the things that you do, and you may not do it intentionally, but you were so used to hearing that. You're so like, for those of you who don't know, when we end the show and I say "Yo ha sido su servidor," that is my homage to Jaime Jarrin, because Jaime Jarrin always said that when on the Dodgers broadcast, he would refer to himself as "Yo ha sido su servidor," and again, it's one of those things where I feel like I don't think people are trying to be Vin Scully, but maybe trying to be as great. We should just give them an opportunity. Just stop focusing on the past and just enjoy the broadcasting, because we could have announcers from other teams. And I know other people hear broadcasters from other teams and go, "Oh, these guys are terrible," right? What I was wondering is, do you see yourself? Could Nelson eventually maybe end up replacing Joe Davis if Davis decides to leave?
I mean, I could probably see that, right? I mean, I think he'd probably be one of the main, candidates for that. I mean, the thing with Joe Davis too is like, I mean, like you mentioned, like the guy is busy, right? Like now half the time that I put on a Dodgers game, I'm kind of more surprised that Joe Davis is actually there than when he's not there, right? Because like you
Yeah.
said, he's so busy. Like he's got the college football, he's got like other stuff that he's doing, and like you said, he's got kids. He's really risen up in the ranks of when you look at the top in any announcement in anything, not just baseball, right? Because he's doing the college football, all that stuff. He's right at the top. So like you said, hey, we have Joe. Let's enjoy Joe as long as we have him in that booth, because like you said, eventually I think he's gonna definitely move on. I mean, he's not gonna be no Vin Scully, right? No 60 plus years there, right? But
Yeah.
we do have these other people that are coming in, like Steven Nelson, that are doing great, and I like you said, I do feel that we are spoiled when we do get a lot of great broadcasters, and like you said, they're not necessarily homers, right?
No.
Like you listen to Steven Nelson, I don't consider him a homer. Sometimes when I put on another broadcast, I kind of feel that vibe, like some of the other teams, like they're really
Yeah.
like homers, and I think we just we get it for what it is.
Yeah, just tell the truth. Just call it the way it is, man. So, again, a big thank you to Steven Nelson for joining us. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, you did too. This is the time where I remind everybody to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Tell your friends. Tell people who are not aware of what is the Big Bleed Lows podcast. If you guys know other Dodger fans that aren't listening to this show, tell them why they should listen to this show. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. We have content on the YouTube channel that's not on the podcast. Like Alicia and I just recently interviewed Jonas Never. Jonas Never just did the new Mariachi Joe mural. I saw there was a huge line to take pictures of it. Babyface, you were there on Friday. It seemed like it was a lot more crowded, or maybe it was just because of that game. I think that game was sold out on Friday, right?
It was sold out. It was Mariachi Joe Bob. It was his bobblehead night on the YouTube channel. You might go there and be like, there's a lot of Mariachi Joe content on there right now. We were out at his book signing. The bobblehead. We have the Jonas thing. So a lot of stuff on Mariachi Joe right now. But yeah, the game was sold out. Those bobbleheads were like flying off the shelves, and people are trying to sell those things for like $100. So if you got one, hold on to that.
Yeah. So as I said, we have content on our YouTube channel. We also have audio content. So just subscribe so you can be made aware of when we are dropping new content. Yo ha sido su servidor Juan Ramírez de parte de mi colega Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts.